If you ever want to develop a key understanding of WWE and AEW's contrasting approaches when it comes to talent, then know this. WWE release a lot of people. AEW do not. If you sign a multi-year AEW contract, then generally that term will be fulfilled. It's hard to see them ever going back on that policy given Tony Khan's comments on the WWE releases, but for a variety of reasons we'll explore on this video, there's a good chance that some people will leave AEW over the coming 12 months. But before we begin, let's make one important distinction. The word in this title is could, not will, or worse yet, should. Nobody wants anyone to lose their job, and in an ideal world, the people on this list will be making livings in pro wrestling for as long as they want to. But not everyone will be in AEW forever, and speculatively, that might include some of the names on this list. I'm Andy from What Culture, and here are 10 wrestlers who could leave AEW in 2022. Number 10, Andrade El Idolo. This is the unlikeliest name on the list, admittedly, but Andrade left WWE to become a star, which is something that is yet to happen in AEW. He's been on TV a fair bit and rubbed shoulders with the likes of Cody Rhodes, Pac, and Malachi Black pretty consistently. Nonetheless, Andrade's presentation hasn't always been the greatest, and from the flip-flopping between managers to the really weird and tenuous alliance with Black, he's not exactly surging to the top. He only signed to AEW last year, so leaving the promotion would take something pretty drastic, like Andrade requesting his release. Again, this is super unlikely, but he's an ambitious guy, so it's not completely out of the question. Number 9, Mike Seidel. Mike hasn't wrestled on AEW television since the 11th of August 2021. Since then, promoting company content on Twitter between Bernie Sanders retweets has been about the extent of his public-facing involvement. Though he was booked for a tag match alongside brother Matt in October, only to pull out due to injury. Further details on his status have not been forthcoming, and if you go over to the AllEliteWrestling.com roster page right now, he's not there. It would suck to see him go, as the Seidels were a very useful mid-level babyface tag team, so here's hoping that the injury becomes a thing of the past and Mike can get himself back on television. Number 8, Kiera Hogan. She only signed with AEW in the summer of 2021, but Kiera confessed that she felt a little lost in the shuffle during an appearance on the Grown Ass Woman show in November. There are signs too that AEW sees her as more of a developmental project than a must-push now project, as at the time of recording, only 2 of her AEW matches have actually been on TV. Given that she was a TV regular for Impact for several years before joining AEW, it's easy to understand why somebody like Hogan might feel lost in the shuffle, as she says. Fingers crossed she escapes that shuffle soon enough and strikes out on TBS and TNT. Number 7, Jack Evans. The initial round of 3-year AEW contracts signed by AEW Originals in 2019 will expire later this year, and if current reporting is anything to go by, it's likely that some of these people will not be renewed, given the ever-changing nature of the AEW roster and the constant additions that are flowing in to the company. It's sad, really, but inevitable. As other people come into the company, the competition for spaces increases, and a guy that hasn't had a whole lot of space recently is Jack Evans. The TH2 man last wrestled for AEW in October, and his last major match saw him lose his hair to Orange Cassidy. Number 6, Angelico. Like his TH2 tag team partner, Angelico signed for AEW in May 2019, meaning that if he joined on a 3-year deal, it'll be up in just a few months. Angelico brings a slick, lave style to the table and wrestles unlike anyone else in the company. TH2 were an important early tag team as well, helping fill out the nascent division's middle tier. But their usage rates are way down, and it's a sad possibility that May could roll around and AEW might opt against renewing. The division has largely passed TH2 by, booking-wise. They've slid down the pecking order and barely even appear with Hardy Family Office anymore. It doesn't look great, to be honest. Number 5, Jake Hager. Big Jake was a smart pickup for a largely hostless AEW roster early on and made an impactful debut on the first episode of Dynamite. But like many of the other people on this list, his rate of usage has declined. On top of this, with AEW no longer short on big beefy boys, Jake doesn't really fill his old niche anymore. And on top of this, the Inner Circle aren't quite the close-knit unit attached to each other at the hip as they used to be. Hager would definitely be a big name cut, and there's no need to get rid of him, or anyone else for that matter, but he'd be a believable departure in 2022 nonetheless. Number 4, Luther. On screen, Luther has always been kind of a curious hire for AEW. Poorly received as part of the Nightmare Collective, AEW brought him in while he was in his 50s, presented him as a deathmatch legend to an audience that largely didn't know who he was, then quietly slipped him off to YouTube, where he continues with Chaos projects to this day. Luther works as a coach behind the scenes, so that might play a role here. But the original Death Dealer has always felt like an odd fit in AEW. Number 3, Joey Janela. Speaking on the My Mom's Basement podcast a few months ago, Joey Janela revealed that his AEW contract expires in May, adding in his own words that he really has to step it up. To be fair, Joey is probably working here, at least to a degree, but he hasn't appeared on Dynamite since May 2021 and has worked exclusively on YouTube over the past few months. And professionally, given his heavy involvement on the US indie scene where he is an important figure behind the scenes as well as in the ring, it's not like his career would be ruined if he were to be released. We obviously hope that doesn't happen because Janela rules, but at least he'd have a fallback. Number 2, Marko Stunt. Recent times have seen Marko all but disappear from view in AEW. At the time of recording, he hadn't wrestled for the company since September, and he isn't even accompanying Jurassic Express to the ring anymore either. Christian Cage appears to have replaced him as Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus' best mate, and Marko is nowhere to be found. Recently, Dave Meltzer confirmed that yes, Marko is still under contract. That being said, there's no word on why exactly AEW aren't even using him at the moment, even in his old role as something of a mascot. Nonetheless, the 25-year-old was signed in 2019, meaning his 3 years are fast approaching. And at number 1, Brian Cage. Comfortably the most believable entry on this entire list, Brian Cage's last AEW TV appearance was on the 8th of October. Though presumably still signed to the company, he has dropped off the radar. In September, Cage's wife, Melissa Santos, famously tweeted about her husband being misused. She was interviewed by Chris Van Vliet a couple of months later and said that all she really wanted was to see Brian booked the way he used to be in Impact, Lucha Underground, and his early AEW days, adding that she was a little bit biased towards her husband. Twitter went nuts about this at the time, but I think it's pretty understandable, really. They're married, so of course they want the best for each other. It seems for now, however, that there isn't a bigger spotlight for Brian on AEW television as, well, he isn't being used at all, and if Cage himself feels like he's being misused and has ambitions of doing more with his pro wrestling career, well, there's a chance he might start looking for something else. Or maybe he'll just stick around and be awesome and get a big push. Who knows? We'll soon find out. So, that's our list, but what do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments section below. Once you've done that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Then, you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye.
Hey you! Yes, you, the wrestling fan! Have you got the January blues? Do other wrestling fans mock you and kick you in the balls for not knowing stuff about AEW, WWE, NXT delete as appropriate? Well, never fear, because What Culture Man is here. I said, What Culture Man is here. And he's here to tell you that if you head to shop.whatculture.com now, you can get your hands on all these great wrestling books, plus magazines, t-shirts and board games. Becoming All Elite by Michael Sidgwick, Development Hell by Michael Sidgwick, Shocking Wrestling Plans You Won't Believe Almost Happened, Shocking Wrestling Plans You Won't Believe Actually Happened, and 606 Wrestling Matches to See Before You Die. Thanks, What Culture Man! What Culture Man is a What Culture creation. DC Comics, please don't sue.